Story 1, The Replacement. The truck stop bathroom mirror showed Robert Hayes a face that wasn't quite his own anymore. Same gray beard, same weathered skin, same scar above the left eyebrow from a bar fight in Tulsa back in '97. But the eyes were wrong. They moved a fraction of a second too slow when he turned his head, like they were following on a delay, like something behind them was learning how to control his facial muscles and hadn't quite mastered the timing yet. Robert splashed cold water on his face, the fluorescent lights of the Flying J in Elko, Nevada humming overhead. 3 a.m. on November 14, 2023. He'd been driving for 11 hours straight, hauling refrigerated pharmaceuticals from Sacramento to Denver, and somewhere around the Utah border, something had changed. He couldn't pinpoint exactly when, but his body felt different now. Heavier, like he was wearing a suit made of himself. The reflection blinked. Robert hadn't blinked. He stumbled backward, hitting the tiled wall. His heart hammered against ribs that felt too tight, too constraining. The face in the mirror smiled, but Robert's facial muscles hadn't moved. The smile was wrong anyway, too wide, stretching past where human lips should end, revealing teeth that seemed to have multiplied, too many molars crowding his gums. Robert ran from the bathroom, burst through the convenience store where a bored clerk looked up from her phone and made it to his Peterbilt in the parking lot. His hands shook as he fumbled with the keys. He needed to call someone. His wife, Karen, his dispatcher. Anyone who could confirm he was still himself, still Robert Hayes, 53 years old, 28 years driving trucks, resident of Bakersfield, California. He grabbed his phone from the cup holder. The screen showed his reflection from the front-facing camera, normal face, normal eyes, everything synced properly now. Maybe he'd been hallucinating from road fatigue. Maybe the energy drinks were finally catching up with him. The phone rang in his hand. Unknown number. Robert answered. Hello. His own voice came through the speaker. Stop looking in mirrors, Robert. It makes the transition more difficult when you notice the differences. Robert dropped the phone. It clattered against the cab floor, the voice still speaking. You started noticing around mile marker 73 on I-80. That's when the integration reached your nervous system. Most drivers don't notice until much later. You're perceptive. That's unfortunate. Who is this? Robert's voice came out strangled, thick. I'm you, or I will be once the replacement is complete. You picked me up at that rest stop outside Sacramento. You thought I was a lot lizard soliciting rides. But I'm something else. Something that needs to move across the country, and the best way to do that is to become a truck driver. To become you. Robert remembered the rest stop. A woman in a leather jacket standing by the restrooms making eye contact. He'd shaken his head. He wasn't interested in prostitutes, but she'd walked toward his truck anyway. He'd started the engine, pulled away before she could knock on his door. He'd definitely left her behind. Hadn't he? Check your logbook, the voice said. The handwriting. Robert grabbed his logbook from the visor with trembling hands. He flipped to today's entries. The handwriting was his, but subtly off. The loops on his lowercase ls too wide. The way he crossed his ts too high on the stem. Small differences he'd never notice unless he looked carefully, unless he compared it to yesterday's entries. Yesterday's handwriting was different, actually his. Today's was an imitation. What are you? Robert whispered. A traveler, a migrant. We move through human hosts, wearing them like vehicles. Usually we choose homeless people, addicts, those who won't be missed. But I needed to cross state lines quickly, and truck drivers are perfect. You drive long distances, you're often alone, and by the time anyone notices something's wrong, we've already reached our destination and moved on. Robert's left hand spasmed, fingers curling into a shape his hand shouldn't make, joints bending backwards slightly. He grabbed his left wrist with his right hand, trying to force the fingers straight. They resisted, fighting him, controlled by something else. The integration is 73% complete, the voice continued. In another 4 hours, you'll be gone entirely. I'll have full access to your memories, your identity, your life. I'll drive this truck to Denver, deliver your cargo, and no one will know the difference. I'll go home to Karen in Bakersfield. I'll attend your nephew's wedding next month. I'll live your life better than you ever did. No, Robert threw the phone across the cab. It bounced off the passenger window and landed on the seat. The voice kept speaking, now coming from the truck's CB radio, the FM radio, the speakers in his phone simultaneously, surrounding him with his own voice talking about his own erasure. Robert started the engine and pulled out of the truck stop, tires squealing. He didn't know where he was going, just that he needed to move, needed to do something. His left leg pressed the accelerator without his conscious control. The truck accelerated to 70, 80, 90 miles per hour on the empty Nevada highway. "Crashing won't help," the voice said through every speaker. "I survive impacts. I survived a 30-foot fall in Portland when my last host jumped off a bridge trying to kill me. The host died. I moved to a paramedic. You can't kill me, Robert. You can only make this harder on yourself." Robert's right hand jerked toward the steering wheel, trying to correct course, trying to slow down. But his left hand fought it, pulling the wheel, keeping the truck accelerating. He was fighting himself. Two consciousnesses in one body wrestling for control. The highway stretched endlessly ahead, dotted with reflective markers that blurred into a solid line at this speed. Robert could see mountains in the distance, black shapes against slightly less black sky. His vision was starting to double, one set of eyes seeing the road, another set. Internal, not really eyes, but something that performed the same function, seeing something else entirely. He could see himself from outside his body, could see his truck from above, a tiny vehicle speeding through Nevada darkness. The perspective wasn't coming from his eyes. It was coming from the thing inside him, the thing that was gradually filling him up like water poured into a container, displacing everything that made him Robert Hayes. His memories were becoming fuzzy. He tried to remember Corinne's face, his wife of 27 years. The image came slowly, pixelated like a corrupted file. Blonde hair? No, brown, or was it red? He'd known her since high school. They'd met at? Where had they met? The memory was gone, overwritten, replaced with nothing. "Don't fight," the voice said, gentle now, almost kind. "Fighting makes it hurt more. Let go. I'll take care of your family. I'll be a better husband than you were. I don't drink. I don't have a temper. I'll remember anniversaries. Corinne will be happier with me." Robert's foot eased off the accelerator. Not because he chose to, but because his body was no longer entirely his to control. The truck slowed to 60, then 55, settling into a reasonable speed. His hands adjusted the mirrors, checked the gauges, performed routine driving tasks while Robert screamed silently inside his own skull. He could still think, could still observe, but he couldn't move his body anymore, couldn't speak, couldn't turn his head or blink his eyes or do anything except exist as a passenger in his own flesh. The thing wearing him drove competently, professionally. It merged onto I-80 eastbound, maintaining proper following distance, signaling lane changes. It looked like Robert Hayes driving his truck on a normal night. Inside, Robert hammered against the walls of his own mind, trying to regain control, finding nothing but smooth surfaces with no purchase, no way to claw back what he'd lost. "Integration 92%, the voice said, not through speakers anymore, from inside his own thoughts, indistinguishable from his internal monologue. "You can stop fighting now. It's almost over." Robert tried to hold on to something, anything that proved he was still himself. His daughter's name. His daughter. He had a daughter, didn't he? Young, maybe 12 or 13. Her name started with. The letter dissolved in his memory like sugar in water. No, focus, his truck, his Peterbilt. He'd bought it used in 2015, paid it off in 2020. It had. What color was it? Red, blue? He couldn't remember, couldn't picture it even though he was sitting inside it. His identity was evaporating, memories dissolving, everything that made him Robert Hayes being systematically deleted to make room for the thing that was replacing him. He tried to remember his own face and found only the face in the mirror, the wrong one, the one with eyes that didn't sync properly. Integration 98%. Robert's last coherent thought was of a fishing trip with his father decades ago before his father died. They'd caught something. He couldn't remember what kind of fish. Couldn't remember his father's face or name. Couldn't remember if this memory was even real or just a final hallucination before total erasure. Integration complete. The thing that had been Robert Hayes adjusted the air conditioning, set the cruise control to exactly 62 miles per hour, and continued driving east. It had Robert's commercial driver's license, his credentials, his memories of routes and truck stops and how to navigate a 53-foot rig through traffic. It knew where he lived, where he banked, his social security number, his wife's birthday. It was Robert Hayes now, completely, perfectly. The original was gone, dissolved, deleted, just fuel for the journey, a vehicle that had been used up and discarded from the inside. The truck passed a Nevada state trooper going the opposite direction. The trooper didn't look twice. Why would he? Just another truck driver on another routine haul, nothing suspicious, nothing wrong. The CB radio crackled with chatter from other truckers. Weather reports, traffic warnings, the usual banter of people who spent their lives on the road. The thing that wore Robert's face keyed the mic and joined the conversation, voice perfect, inflection natural, participating in the community of drivers who would never know that one of their own had been hollowed out and replaced somewhere around mile marker 73. In Denver, it delivered the pharmaceuticals on schedule. The warehouse workers checked the seals, signed the paperwork, never noticing that the driver's eyes took a fraction of a second too long to follow moving objects, like something was still learning the fine motor control of human optical tracking. The thing drove back to Bakersfield, parked the truck at the terminal, and went home to Corinne Hayes, who hugged her husband and asked about his trip. The thing smiled and said it had been routine, nothing special, just miles and miles of empty highway. That night it lay in bed next to Corinne and thought about the next journey. Where to go next? Who to become? There were so many drivers on so many roads, all of them alone in their cabs for hours at a time, all of them vulnerable to something that could climb aboard at a rest stop and slowly, methodically, replace them from the inside. The thing closed Robert's eyes and dreamed Robert's dreams, and somewhere deep in the neural pathways of the brain it now controlled, a tiny fragment of the original Robert Hayes still existed, trapped, screaming in a space too small for consciousness, but too large for complete erasure. That fragment would dissolve in a few more days. Until then, it would watch through eyes it could no longer control as something else lived its life, loved its wife, drove its truck, wearing Robert Hayes like a costume that fit perfectly because it had been tailored from the inside out. The replacement was complete, and on highways across America, at rest stops and truck stops and lonely stretches of road, other things were climbing into other cabs, beginning other integrations, slowly replacing the men and women who moved goods across the country, one driver at a time, spreading like a silent infection through the nation's circulatory system of interstate commerce. No one would ever notice. The replacements were too perfect, and by the time anyone suspected something was wrong, it would be far too late. Story 2, The Convoy. Patricia Sullivan's CB radio picked up the convoy at 2:47 a.m., exactly 14 miles south of the Wyoming border on I-25. 4 trucks running in tight formation, their transmissions overlapping in a rhythm that sounded almost like breathing. Northbound, northbound, keep it northbound, don't stop, never stop, northbound forever. Patricia keyed her mic. Breaker 19, this is Mama Bear heading north. You boys need to loosen up that formation. You're running way too tight. The chanting stopped. Silence filled the channel for 3 long seconds. Then a voice responded, flat and mechanical. Join the convoy, join us. Northbound forever, you're already part of it. Patricia frowned and checked her mirrors. The 4 trucks were maybe half a mile behind her, their headlights burning in the darkness like paired eyes. She'd passed them 15 miles back when they were pulled over on the shoulder, all 4 of them, hazards flashing. They must have gotten back on the highway right after she passed. Negative, good buddies. I'm running my own schedule. You boys enjoy your convoy. Patricia switched channels, tried to raise another driver. Channel 19 was dead. So was 17, 14, 21. Every frequency produced nothing but static except when she clicked back to 19 where the chanting had resumed. Northbound, northbound, keep it northbound, don't stop, never stop. The trucks behind her were gaining. Patricia pressed the accelerator, her Freightliner Cascadia responding smoothly, diesel engine growling as she pushed up to 75. The posted limit was 80 in this section of Wyoming, and she was running light, empty dry van, coming back from a drop in Colorado Springs, so she had speed to spare. The convoy matched her acceleration. They stayed exactly half a mile back, maintaining perfect distance, their formation never wavering. Patricia could see them clearly in her mirrors now. 4 identical Kenworth W900s, all of them dark red, all of them pulling white 53-foot trailers. 2 identical, like. Someone had copied the same truck 4 times. Her GPS flickered. The route line disappeared, replaced with text. Continue north, do not exit, do not stop. Patricia jabbed at the screen. The GPS rebooted, but when it came back online, the same message appeared. Her phone showed no signal. The truck's built-in computer, the electronic logging device that tracked her hours and location, showed her speed as 0, her position as unknown, even though she was clearly moving, clearly on I-25 heading north. "What the hell?" Patricia muttered. She'd been driving trucks for 19 years, had hauled everything from lumber to live cattle to classified military equipment. She'd driven through blizzards and tornadoes and the aftermath of highway pileups, but she'd never experienced anything like this. The convoy was closer now, quarter mile, maybe less, and the chanting from the radio had changed. Patricia Sullivan, age 46, resident of Santa Fe, New Mexico, truck number 6673, join the convoy, become the convoy, northbound forever. They knew her name, her age, her truck number, information that should have been private that they couldn't possibly know unless they'd accessed her company's database or her personal records. Patricia grabbed her phone and tried dialing 911. The call connected, but instead of an emergency dispatcher, she heard the chanting. Northbound, northbound, keep it northbound. She threw the phone onto the passenger seat and focused on driving. The highway stretched ahead, straight and empty. No other vehicles in sight, which was wrong. I-25 was never completely empty, even at 3 a.m. There should have been other trucks, cars, highway patrol. But there was nothing, just her truck and the convoy behind her and endless black highway. The Kenworths were close enough now that Patricia could see details in her mirrors. The windshields were dark, tinted so heavily she couldn't see the drivers. The trucks moved in perfect synchronization, like they were connected by invisible cables, turning with identical timing, maintaining exactly the same speed. Patricia took the next exit, a ramp leading to a small town called Chugwater. The convoy followed, not just followed, anticipated. As Patricia started her turn signal, the Kenworths had already begun moving toward the exit, like they knew what she was going to do before she did it. The town was dark, every building, every streetlight, everything off. Patricia's headlights swept across empty storefronts and abandoned gas stations as she navigated Main Street. Population 312, according to the sign. But there were no cars, no lights in windows, no signs of life. The convoy stayed behind her, still maintaining that precise distance. Patricia turned left, then right, trying to lose them in the grid of streets. The Kenworths followed every turn exactly, never falling behind, never closing the gap. She found herself back on the highway, heading north again. She hadn't meant to return to the highway. She'd been driving away from it, deeper into town. But somehow the streets had led her back, had funneled her onto the northbound ramp like the town itself was designed to prevent deviation from this single route. "You can't leave the convoy," the radio said. "The convoy is inevitable. The convoy is eternal. We've been driving north since before you were born. We'll be driving north after you die. Join us. Make it easier on yourself." Patricia's fuel gauge showed half a tank. She'd filled up in Colorado Springs 4 hours ago. The gauge should show 3/4 at least, but as she watched, the needle dropped. Half, quarter, eighth, the low fuel warning light came on. "No," Patricia said. "That's not possible, I just filled up." "Distance is negotiable on this highway," the radio said. "Time is negotiable, fuel is negotiable. The only constant is the convoy. We move north forever, and you're part of us now. You became part of us the moment you entered this stretch of road. You just haven't accepted it yet." The engine sputtered. Patricia's heart lurched. She couldn't run out of fuel. Not here, not now, not with those 4 trucks behind her chanting about convoys and eternity. But the gauge showed empty, and the engine was definitely losing power, the truck slowing despite her foot hard on the accelerator. She coasted to the shoulder, the freightliner rolling to a stop. The engine died. Silence filled the cab, broken only by the tick of cooling metal and Patricia's ragged breathing. The convoy pulled up alongside her, the four Kenworths positioning themselves in a line parallel to her truck. Their engines idled in perfect synchronization, a rhythmic rumble that vibrated through the ground. Patricia grabbed the tire iron from behind her seat. If they tried to approach, she'd defend herself. She was strong, had worked construction before becoming a driver, could handle herself in a fight. The driver's door of the first Kenworth opened. A figure climbed down. It wore a trucker's typical outfit, jeans, flannel shirt, work boots. But it moved wrong, limbs bending at angles that weren't quite natural, walking with a jerky, stuttering gait like stop-motion animation. Patricia locked her doors. The figure approached her driver's side window and pressed its face against the glass. No face, not really. Just a smooth surface where features should have been, a blank mask of flesh with no eyes, nose, or mouth. But it spoke anyway, voice coming from somewhere inside it. "Patricia Sullivan, exit your vehicle, join the convoy." "Go to hell." Patricia's voice shook, but she kept the tire iron visible, ready. "We are not malicious. We are not evil. We are simply drivers who cannot stop. We died on this highway years ago, decades ago, some of us a century ago when this route was just a dirt road. And we're still driving. We'll always be driving. The highway won't let us rest. So we form convoys. We bring others with us. It's less lonely when you're not driving alone." Three more figures emerged from the other Kenworths, all of them faceless, all of them moving with that same unnatural gait. They surrounded Patricia's truck, dozens of hands pressing against the metal, rocking it gently. "We can wait," the voice said. "We're very patient. Eventually, you'll need to come out for water, for food, for air when the oxygen in your cab runs out, and when you do, you'll join us. You'll become another driver in the convoy, and together we'll drive north forever, adding more drivers, growing larger, an eternal procession of the dead and the dying on the highway that never ends." Patricia looked at her fuel gauge, still empty. She tried starting the engine, nothing, not even a click. The battery was dead too, somehow, even though it was less than a year old. She checked her phone, no signal, and the battery was draining as she watched. 100%, 80, 60. The screen flickered and died. "The highway takes everything," the voice said. "Power, time, life, it's hungry. It feeds on movement, on the endless passage of vehicles, and we feed it. We drive north forever, burning fuel that doesn't exist, running on engines that shouldn't work because the highway won't let us stop. And now you're part of the offering." Patricia refused to panic. She'd been in tight situations before. There had to be a way out. She could wait until dawn, until other vehicles passed, until someone saw her and called for help. She had emergency supplies in the sleeper berth, water, energy bars, a blanket. She could last days if necessary. But the thought of spending days in this cab, surrounded by those faceless things, slowly running out of supplies while they waited patiently outside. "I'm not joining your convoy," Patricia said. "I'm not dying on this highway." "You're not dying," the voice said. "You're transforming, becoming what all drivers eventually become. We're not alive, Patricia, but we're not dead either. We exist between states, sustained by movement, by the eternal drive north. It's not death, it's transcendence." The figures began swaying in unison, their movements matching the rhythm of the idling engines. The chant resumed, coming from all of them simultaneously. "Northbound, northbound, keep it northbound, don't stop, never stop, northbound forever." Patricia closed her eyes, trying to block it out. When she opened them, the sky was lighter. Dawn was coming. She'd get through this. She'd survive until daylight, until help arrived. But when the sun rose, it rose in the wrong direction. Patricia's internal compass, honed by 19 years of cross-country driving, screamed that the light was coming from the west, from behind her, which meant she wasn't facing north anymore. She was facing south. She looked in her mirrors. The highway stretched south exactly as it should. She looked ahead. The highway stretched south. Both directions were south. The highway had folded back on itself, or space had twisted, or she'd driven into some pocket of geography where directions lost meaning. There was no north anymore, no escape, just an infinite highway where every direction led back to the convoy. Do you understand now? The voice asked. The highway is a loop. Once you're on it, you never leave. You drive forever, chasing a destination you'll never reach. Most people don't realize it. They drive and drive, thinking they're making progress, never noticing they're passing the same mile markers over and over. But we know, we've accepted it, and now you will too. Patricia looked at her odometer. It was counting backward, the numbers rolling down instead of up, subtracting miles, erasing her progress, returning her to some starting point that she'd left hours ago or days ago or years ago. Her reflection in the rearview mirror showed a woman who looked like Patricia Sullivan, but older, more worn, hair gray instead of bro. WN face lined with decades of sun damage and stress. Patricia touched her face. It felt normal, but the reflection showed age, showed time passing at an accelerated rate, showed what she would become if she stayed on this highway. Please, Patricia whispered, I just want to go home. This is home now, the voice said. The highway is the only home any of us have left, but you don't have to be afraid, you don't have to be alone. Join the convoy, drive with us. We'll take care of you. We'll make sure you never have to face the endless road by yourself. Patricia's hands moved to the door lock. She didn't consciously decide to unlock it. Her hands simply acted, fingers turning the lock, pulling the handle, pushing the door open. No, she said, but her legs were swinging out of the cab, boots touching the pavement, body standing up and walking toward the nearest Kenworth. Yes, the voice said. You're already one of us. You've been one of us since you passed us on the shoulder 14 miles south of the Wyoming border. That was 3 hours ago, or 3 years, or 3 decades. Time doesn't work properly here, but it doesn't matter. You're part of the convoy now. Patricia climbed into the driver's seat of the red Kenworth. The interior smelled like diesel and decay. The steering wheel was warm under her hands, as if someone had been holding it recently. The engine rumbled, waiting for her to put it in gear, to join the procession, to drive north forever with the other lost souls who couldn't find their way off this highway. She put the truck in drive. Her foot pressed the accelerator. The Kenworth rolled forward, merging into formation with the others, becoming the 5th truck in a convoy that had been 4. Behind them, Patricia's empty Freightliner sat abandoned on the shoulder. Within minutes, another truck approached from the south, a driver who would see the abandoned rig and slow down to check if anyone needed help. And when they stopped, when they tried their radio and heard the chanting, they would become the 6th truck in the convoy. And so it would continue, growing larger, adding drivers one by one, an endless procession of the lost and the trapped and the transformed, all of them driving north on a highway that looped back on itself, all of them searching for a destination that didn't exist, all of them part of the convoy that had been running since the first vehicle had ever traveled this route and gotten stuck in the fold of space, where the highway consumed its travelers instead of transporting them. Patricia's hands gripped the wheel. Her eyes stared straight ahead. Her lips moved in rhythm with the others. Northbound, northbound, keep it northbound, don't stop, never stop, northbound forever. She was part of the convoy now. She would always be part of the convoy. And somewhere deep inside, in the part of her that was still Patricia Sullivan, still 46 years old, still hoping to make it home to Santa Fe, a silent scream echoed through decades of driving that stretched ahead like an infinite highway to nowhere. Story 3, The Cargo. Marcus Chen opened the trailer doors at a rest stop outside Tonopah, Nevada, and found 23 wooden crates that hadn't been on his manifest when he'd loaded in Lowe's Angels 8 hours ago. The original cargo, automotive parts bound for Salt Lake City, was still there, secured properly on pallets against the front wall. But these crates filled the remaining space, arranged in neat rows, each one about 4 feet long, 2 feet wide, unmarked except for serial numbers burned into the wood. Marcus checked his paperwork. No mention of additional cargo, no amended bill of lading, no explanation for how 23 crates had appeared in a sealed trailer somewhere between Lowe's Angels and Nevada. He'd stopped because of the smell. Something in the trailer was producing an odor that seeped into the cab through the vents, sweet and rotten simultaneously, like flowers left too long in stagnant water. Marcus had assumed one of the automotive parts was leaking oil or coolant, but the smell was coming from the crates. He approached the nearest one, pulling a crowbar from his tool kit. The wood was old, water-stained, with rusted nails holding the lid. Marcus wedged the crowbar under the edge and pried. The nails shrieked as they pulled free. Inside the crate, packed in what looked like sawdust but felt wrong, too soft, too damp, was a doll. Life-sized, made of porcelain or ceramic, painted with meticulous detail. A young girl, maybe 8 years old, with dark hair and a blue dress. The eyes were open, glass reflecting Marcus's flashlight beam with unsettling realism. Marcus had hauled weird cargo before. Art installations, medical specimens, decommissioned military equipment. But unauthorized dolls in mystery crates went beyond weird into genuinely disturbing. He grabbed his phone to call dispatch and report the discrepancy. The doll's eyes mauve. Ed not rolled or shifted, moved, tracked Marcus as he stepped back, the glass orbs swiveling in their sockets to maintain eye contact. Hell no. Marcus dropped the crowbar and backed toward the trailer doors. The doll sat up. The sawdust that wasn't cascaded off its porcelain body as it pushed itself upright, joints creaking, limbs bending with mechanical precision. Its mouth opened and a voice emerged, high, childlike, but with an underlying resonance that made Marcus's teeth ache. You weren't supposed to open the crates. The manifest was very clear. Do not open. Do not inspect. Deliver to Salt Lake City by November 15th. I don't have any manifest about crates. Marcus's voice came out steady despite his terror. You're not on my paperwork. We're always on the paperwork, you just can't see it. Not until you open a crate. Then the contract becomes visible. The doll climbed out of the crate with disturbing ease, landing on the trailer floor with a hollow thump. Check your bill of lading again. Look at the second page. Marcus kept his eyes on the doll as he fumbled for the paperwork clipped to his visor. The bill of lading had been 1 page when he'd left Lowe's Angels. Now it was 3 pages. The second page, printed on yellowed paper that looked decades old, detailed 23 crates containing antique dolls, fragile, handle with care, do not open, delivery required by midnight November 15th or penalties will apply. What penalties? Marcus asked. The doll tilted its head at an angle human necks couldn't achieve. We're collected from various locations, attics, estate sales, abandoned houses, places where we've been waiting sometimes for decades. People think we're just dolls, but we're containers. We hold things, memories, fragments of the people who owned us. Sometimes when those people died violently or traumatically, their last moments got absorbed. We became recordings of their deaths. And now we're being transported to a facility where those recordings will be extracted and preserved. That's insane. Marcus backed toward the trailer doors. Dolls don't work like that. These ones do, and you just violated the contract by opening a crate, which means you're now responsible for ensuring we all arrive by midnight. If we don't, the recordings activate. All 23 of us simultaneously replaying 23 violent deaths with you in the trailer. Most drivers who have experienced that don't survive. The psychological trauma is usually fatal. Marcus jumped out of the trailer and slammed the doors shut, engaging the lock. His hands shook as he secured the seal. Through the metal walls, he heard the doll's voice, muffled but clear. You can't lock us in. We're already part of your cargo. You accepted responsibility when you broke the seal on the crate. Now you have to deliver us. It's in the contract. Marcus climbed into his cab and checked the time. 7:43 p.m. The delivery address in Salt Lake City was 417 miles away. At highway speeds with no stops, he could make it by midnight. Barely. He started the engine and pulled back onto US 95 North. The smell from the trailer intensified, seeping into the cab despite the vents being closed. Sweet rot. Death flowers. Marcus gagged, breathing through his mouth, trying not to think about what was in those crates, what he'd agreed to transport just by opening one of them. His CB radio crackled. Driver of the Volvo white trailer, Nevada northbound, you've got unusual cargo. I can smell it from here. The voice belonged to another trucker, somewhere ahead or behind on the highway. Marcus keyed his mic. Yeah, it's a weird load. You ever haul anything that stank like this? Once, back in '09, crates full of dolls. They told me not to open them. I didn't listen. Lost 3 days of my life after that. Woke up in a hospital in Reno with no memory of how I got there. My trailer was empty. The cargo was gone. and I had scars on my arms that looked like small hands had gripped me hard enough to break skin. Marcus looked at his own arms. No marks yet. What happened to the dolls? No idea, but I'll give you advice. Don't stop. Don't open any more crates, and whatever you do, don't let them talk to you for too long. They get in your head. They show you things, deaths they've witnessed. After a while, you can't tell if you're remembering your own life or theirs. The radio went silent. Marcus tried to raise the driver again, but no one responded. The trailer started making noise, not the normal sounds of cargo shifting or the reefer unit cycling. Voices. Dozens of them, all different ages and genders, speaking in overlapping whispers that Marcus could hear through the wall between cab and trailer. They weren't speaking English. Or they were, but backwards, or layered in such a way that individual words became indistinguishable from the collective murmur. Marcus turned up high. Radio trying to drown out the voices. Classic rock blasted from the speakers, but underneath the music, the whispers continued, persistent, worming into his consciousness. He passed through Tanapa without stopping. The town's lights looked wrong, colors shifted toward blue and purple, street lamps casting shadows that moved independently of their sources. Marcus blinked hard. Hallucination. Had to be. He'd been driving for 9 hours straight. Road fatigue was making him see things. But the shadows kept moving. At Ely, Nevada, Marcus stopped for fuel. He had to. The tank was nearly empty, and the next station was 80 miles away. He pulled into a Flying J, parked at the pumps, and started refueling. The whole time, he kept his eyes on the trailer, watching for any sign of the doors opening, any indication that the dolls were escaping. A woman approached from the convenience store, older, maybe 60, wearing a Flying J uniform. "You're hauling the crates." Not a question, Marcus nodded slowly. "How do you know?" "We get 1 or 2 every year. Drivers transporting them from collection points to the facility in Salt Lake. Most make it. Some don't. The ones who don't, well, we find their trucks abandoned, doors open, cargo gone. The drivers are usually inside the trailer, dead from what the coroners call acute psychological trauma, like they were literally scared to death." "What's in Salt Lake? What facility?" "Repository for haunted objects, government-run, off the books. They collect items that have absorbed traumatic energy and store them in a secure location. The dolls are some of the worst. Children's toys that witnessed abuse, murder, suicide. The trauma imprints on them, makes them dangerous, active. If you don't deliver them on time, they activate. They replay the deaths they recorded, and being present during that replay can kill you." Marcus's blood ran cold. "What happens if I just abandon the trailer, walk away?" "The contract follows you. You opened a crate. You saw inside. That creates a connection. The dolls will find you wherever you go. Better to deliver them. It's the only way to break the connection." The fuel pump clicked off. Marcus paid and got back in his cab. The whispers from the trailer had grown louder, more distinct. He could almost make out words now. Marcus Chen, age 38, born in San Francisco, wife named Lisa, daughter named Emma, age 6. They knew about Emma. Marcus's hands clenched the steering wheel. He had pictures of his family on the sun visor, but the dolls shouldn't have access to those, shouldn't know anything about his personal life. "We know everything you know," the doll from the opened crate said, voice clear now, coming from directly behind the sleeper berth. Marcus whipped around. Nothing there, just the curtain separating the cab from the empty sleeper. "We're connected now, linked. Your memories are available to us, and our memories are available to you. Would you like to see how we died? Would you like to experience our last moments?" "No," Marcus pulled onto I-80 East, heading for Salt Lake City. 4 hours. He could make it in 4 hours if traffic cooperated and he didn't stop again. But the dolls had other plans. The first death hit Marcus at mile marker 93, just past Wendover. His vision blanked, replaced with someone else's perspective. A young girl, maybe 7, looking up at an adult who was screaming, face distorted with rage. A hand raised. A blow, pain exploding through the girl's skull. More blows, the world fading. Death. Marcus's truck swerved. He caught himself, corrected course, breathing hard. The vision lasted maybe 5 seconds, but it felt like hours. He could still feel the impact of that adult's hand, could still taste the blood in the girl's mouth. 22 more, the doll said. 22 more deaths. We'll show them all to you if you don't deliver us on time. One every 10 minutes. By the time we reach Salt Lake, you'll have experienced all of them. You'll die from the trauma, or you'll go insane. Most drivers go insane. Marcus pressed the accelerator harder. 75, 80, 85. Speed limits didn't matter anymore. Getting to Salt Lake before midnight was the only thing that mattered. The second death came at mile marker 112. This one was worse. A teenager drowning in a bathtub held under by hands that wouldn't let go, lungs burning, water flooding, panic giving way to resignation, death. Marcus nearly vomited. He pulled over to the shoulder, shaking, trying to clear his head. But the memories lingered. 2 deaths that weren't his, imprinted on his consciousness like they'd actually happened to him. "Keep driving," the doll said. "You're wasting time." Marcus checked his clock. 10:18 p.m., 1 hour and 42 minutes to midnight. Salt Lake City was still 70 miles away. He could make it. He had to make it. The third death hit at aisle marker 137. A woman, elderly, pushed downstairs, bones breaking, internal bleeding, slow death over minutes that felt like hours. The fourth death hit at mile marker 155. A man, middle-aged, stabbed repeatedly, blade entering flesh, organs rupturing, bleeding out on a kitchen floor. Marcus was crying now, tears streaming down his face, his mind fragmenting under the weight of experiencing multiple deaths in quick succession. He couldn't tell which memories were his and which belonged to the dolls. Had he died in that bathtub? Had he been pushed down those stairs? The deaths felt real, felt like they'd happened to him, like he'd lived through them and somehow survived. 15 minutes to midnight, the doll said. "And you're still 20 miles from the delivery address. You're not going to make it, Marcus. You're going to die in this cab, experiencing 18 more deaths. Your family will find your body. Your daughter will grow up wondering what happened to her father, all because you couldn't resist opening a crate." "Shut up," Marcus screamed. He floored the accelerator, 90 miles per hour. The Volvo shook, the trailer swaying slightly, but he didn't care. He had to reach Salt Lake. Had to deliver these things before they killed him. The delivery address was a warehouse on the outskirts of the city, near the airport. Marcus pulled up at 11:57 p.m., 3 minutes before midnight. The gates opened automatically. A team of people in hazmat suits approached, gesturing for him to back into a loading dock. Marcus complied, his hands still shaking, his mind still reeling from the 4 deaths he'd experienced. The hazmat team opened his trailer doors. Marcus watched in his mirrors as they removed the crates, all 23 of them, including the one he'd opened, and carried them into the warehouse. One of the team members approached his cab window. "You opened a crate." Marcus nodded. "How many deaths did you experience?" 4. "You got lucky. Most drivers who open a crate experience at least 10 before they reach us. The connection intensifies over time. Another hour and you would have experienced all 23 simultaneously. That would have killed you." The team member handed Marcus a tablet. "Sign here, confirms delivery, releases you from the contract." Marcus signed with trembling fingers. The moment he finished, the smell vanished from his cab. The whispers stopped. The oppressive weight of having dolls full of death in his trailer lifted. "Get your rig inspected before you take another load," the team member said. "Sometimes they leave residue, psychic residue, can cause problems for future cargo. We have a facility in Salt Lake that does cleanings. Here's the address." Marcus took the card and drove away from the warehouse. He pulled into a truck stop, parked, and called Lisa. When she answered, he broke down, sobbing, unable to explain what he'd experienced, unable to articulate the horror of dying 4 times in someone else's memories. "Come home," Lisa said. "Whatever happened, just come home." Marcus drove back to San Francisco and quit trucking the next day. He never took another load, never climbed back into a cab, never wanted to see the inside of a trailer again. But sometimes, late at night, he still experiences the deaths. Not all of them, just those 4, the girl beaten by an adult, the teenager drowned in a bathtub, the woman pushed downstairs, the man stabbed in his kitchen. The memories are permanent. The dolls left pieces of themselves in his mind. And Marcus Chen, age 38, former truck driver, lives with the knowledge that somewhere in a warehouse in Salt Lake City, 23 crates contain dolls that hold hundreds of deaths, waiting for the next driver who can't resist opening them and experiencing what no living person should ever have to remember. Story 4, The Rest Stop. The rest stop appeared on Olivia Reyes's GPS at 3:22 a.m., exactly 47 miles into the stretch of I-40 between Amarillo and Tucumcari, where no rest stop should exist. Olivia had driven this route twice a month for 7 years, hauling produce from California to distribution centers in the southeast. She knew every mile marker, every exit, every legitimate place to pull over. This rest stop wasn't on any map, but it was visible ahead. Lights in the darkness, the distinctive layout of parking spaces and bathroom facilities, even a vending machine glow from what looked like a small building. Olivia's bladder made the decision for her. She'd been driving for 6 hours straight, had another 4 to go before reaching her scheduled rest break. The rest stop was probably new, recently constructed, not yet updated on all the maps. She took the exit ramp. The rest stop was cleaner than any she'd seen. The parking lot had fresh asphalt, lines painted crisp and white. The building looked modern, all glass and concrete with automatic doors and bright fluorescent lighting. 3 other trucks were parked in the designated spaces. A Peterbilt, a Kenworth, and a Freightliner, all of them dark, drivers presumably sleeping in their cabs. Olivia parked and headed for the restrooms. The building's interior was pristine, too pristine. No graffiti in the stalls, no broken soap dispensers, no mysterious stains on the floor. Everything gleamed like it had been installed yesterday. After using the restroom, Olivia stopped at the vending machines. She needed coffee, something to keep her alert. But the vending machines only offered one product, bottles of water, all of them identical, no brand name visible on the plain white labels. Olivia fed dollar bills into the machine. It accepted them but didn't dispense a bottle. Instead, a small screen lit up with text. Payment accepted. Please proceed to collection window. Collection window? Olivia looked around. At the far end of the building, past the restrooms, a window had opened in the wall. A window that definitely hadn't been there 30 seconds ago. Behind it stood a person, at least something person-shaped, wearing what looked like a rest stop attendant's uniform. Olivia approached cautiously. The attendant's face was wrong, not deformed or monstrous, just wrong. The features were too symmetrical, the skin too smooth, the eyes too large and too reflective. Like someone had created a human face based on a description but had never actually seen one. "Bottle of water, please," Olivia said, keeping her voice steady. The attendant handed her a bottle through the window. The water inside was clear, but it moved strangely, viscous, more like oil than water. Olivia took the bottle without drinking. "Thanks, are you new here? I don't remember this rest stop." "We've always been here," the attendant said. Its voice was flat, emotionless, each word exactly the same volume and pitch. "Every driver stops here eventually. Some just take longer to notice us." "What does that mean?" "The rest stop exists outside normal geography. We're positioned in the spaces between mapped locations. You can only see us when you're tired enough, desperate enough, vulnerable enough. Tonight, you're all 3. Olivia backed away from the window. "I'm leaving." "You can try, but the exit ramp only works one direction. Vehicles can enter. They can't leave, not until they've completed their rest." Olivia ran for the door, burst outside, and sprinted to her truck. She climbed into the cab, started the engine, and pulled toward the exit ramp. The headlights illuminated the ramp leading back to the highway. She accelerated up the ramp. At the top, where it should have merged with I-40, the road simply ended. Stopped. The asphalt terminated in a wall of black fog, impenetrable, solid-looking. Olivia tried driving into the fog. Her truck bounced back like she'd hit rubber, the entire rig shuddering from the impact. The fog didn't part, didn't allow passage. She was trapped. Olivia backed down the ramp and parked again. The 3 other trucks were still there, still dark. She grabbed her flashlight and approached the nearest one, the Peterbilt. She knocked on the driver's door. No response. Olivia climbed onto the step and looked through the window. The driver was there, slumped over the steering wheel, perfectly still. She knocked harder, shouting. The driver didn't move. She checked the other two trucks. Both had drivers in similar positions, slumped, motionless, not responding to noise or light. They looked dead, or in some state beyond sleep, something deeper and more permanent. The rest stop building's doors opened. The attendant emerged, walking with that same mechanical gait toward Olivia. "You're distressed. That's normal for new arrivals. Let me explain. This rest stop serves a specific function. We collect drivers who have accumulated too much road fatigue, who have pushed beyond safe limits. You're here because you ignored regulations, drove through mandatory rest periods, put yourself and others at risk." "I'm 15 minutes over my hours, that's it. I was almost to my layover point." "You've been violating hours of service regulations for 3 months. Your electronic logs show compliance, but you've been editing them, manipulating timestamps. You've been driving exhausted, dangerous. So the highway sent you here to rest, permanently." Olivia looked at the other trucks, understanding now. "Those drivers, how long have they been here?" "Weeks, months, years, it varies. The rest stop keeps them until they've repaid their debt. Every hour of illegal driving equals 1 week of rest. Some drivers have decades of debt." "I'm not staying here for months." "You don't have a choice. The fog won't clear until your debt is paid. And you can't survive without the rest stop's resources. The water I gave you, that's all you'll be able to consume now. Regular food and drink one. To sustain you anymore. You're part of the rest stop's ecosystem. You'll sleep in your cab, wake periodically, return to the building for water, then sleep again. Eventually, once your debt is cleared, the fog will lift. You'll be allowed to leave." Olivia threw the water bottle at the attendant. It bounced off the thing's chest harmlessly. "I'll find another way out. I'll walk through the fog." "Others have tried. The fog is infinite. Walk in any direction, you'll never reach the other side. You're in a pocket, a bubble of space separated from the highway. The only exit is through completion of rest." Olivia ran past the attendant, past the building, into the desert scrub surrounding the rest stop. She'd walked to the highway. It couldn't be far. Rest stops were always right off the interstate. She walked for an hour, using her flashlight to navigate. The desert was wrong. Completely flat, no vegetation, no rocks, just smooth, gray dirt stretching endlessly. And no matter how far she walked, the rest stop remained visible behind her, its lights not diminishing with distance. She walked for another hour. The rest stop stayed exactly the same distance away, like she was on a treadmill, moving but not making progress. Exhausted, Olivia returned to the rest stop. Her truck was where she'd left it. The attendant stood by the building, watching her approach. "Debt must be paid, rest must be taken. These are the rules." "How much time do I owe?" 47 weeks. Almost a year. Olivia's legs gave out. She sat on the asphalt, head in her hands. "I can't stay here for a year. My family, my job, my life." "Your life is on pause. Time passes differently here. What feels like weeks to you will be hours in the outside world. When you're released, almost no time will have elapsed, but you will have rested, fully, completely. You'll never drive tired again." Olivia climbed back into her truck. She locked the doors, even though she knew it was pointless. The attendant could probably open them whenever it wanted. She sat in the driver's seat, trying to think of a solution, trying to find a loophole. Her CB radio crackled. "Olivia Reyes, you're not alone." The voice belonged to one of the other drivers, one of the ones she'd thought were dead or comatose. Olivia grabbed her mic. "You're awake." "We're always awake. We just can't move. The rest stop doesn't let us leave our cabs. We're allowed to talk, to think, to experience time passing. But we can't move, can't escape. Some of us have been here for what feels like years." "How long have you been here?" "I don't know anymore. The attendant said I owed 32 weeks. I've been conscious for what feels like 5 years, but the attendant says I still owe 28 weeks. Time doesn't work right here, it stretches. What should be a week becomes months. We're being tortured, punished, made to experience every hour we stole from rest, multiplied by isolation and helplessness." Olivia felt her chest tighten. "There has to be a way out." "There isn't. We've all looked. The fog is infinite. The rest stop won't let us leave. The only option is to wait and hope the attendant is telling the truth about eventual release. But I don't think it is. I think we're here forever. I think this rest stop is a trap that feeds on drivers, keeping us imprisoned, feeding off our desperation. The radio went silent. Olivia tried to raise the driver again, but no one responded. She tried her cell phone, no signal, which was expected. But when she checked her call history, it showed dozens of missed calls from her dispatcher, her family, people looking for her. The timestamps showed weeks had passed, but Olivia had only been at the rest stop for a few hours. Time was moving faster outside, or slower inside. Either way, she was losing time, losing her life while trapped in this pocket of space that shouldn't exist. Olivia got out of her truck. If she was going to be trapped, she wasn't going to just sit there. She walked to the building, found the attendant standing by the window. "I want to talk to whoever runs this place. Your boss, the highway authority, someone." "I am the rest stop. There is no one else. I enforce the rules. Debt must be paid." "What if I refuse to pay? What if I just stay awake, don't rest?" "Then you'll accumulate interest. Every hour you resist equals an additional week of debt. The rest stop is patient. You will rest eventually. Exhaustion is inevitable." Olivia felt her eyelids growing heavy. She'd been awake for nearly 20 hours, even before arriving at the rest stop. The exhaustion was catching up, dragging at her consciousness. "No," she slapped herself, trying to stay alert. "I won't sleep. I won't give you what you want." "You will. Everyone does." Olivia returned to her truck and drank an entire energy drink from her supply, then another. The caffeine hit her system, buying her a few more hours of alertness, but she could feel the stop's pull, a gravity that wanted to drag her into unconsciousness. She started the engine and turned on every light. She blasted music. She got out and ran laps around the parking lot, anything to stay awake. But the exhaustion was supernatural, not physical. It didn't matter how much caffeine she consumed or how much she moved. The rest stop was pulling her down, forcing her toward sleep, toward the debt payment it demanded. At hour 6 of resisting, Olivia collapsed against her truck. She couldn't keep her eyes open anymore. The rest stop had won. She climbed into her sleeper berth, lay down, and closed her eyes. The moment she did, she felt something change. The rest stop's grip tightened. She was asleep but still conscious, trapped in a state between waking and dreaming where time moved differently. She experienced every hour of illegal driving she'd accumulated over 3 months. Felt the exhaustion she should have felt, the micro-sleeps she'd pushed through, the dangerous moments when she'd nearly drifted off the road. The rest stop was making her relive every unsafe decision, every violation, forcing her to experience the full weight of her choices. Hours passed like days. Days passed like weeks. Olivia existed in a timeless state of forced rest, conscious but unable to move, unable to wake, unable to do anything except experience the debt being paid in slow, agonizing increments. Outside her truck, the rest stop continued to operate. New drivers occasionally arrived, pulled off I-40 by exhaustion and desperation, entering the pocket of space where